Well, you think launching missiles at each other is bad. Try being in the home building business. It's really, I know I shouldn't laugh about that. It's probably a bad joke, but it's kind of feels the same if you're in this industry, in the building industry and in the real estate industry, because it is like a war out here in business. So I invited today a couple of my very best friends and people that's super knowledgeable. Bess Dickson. She is a real estate global relocation expert salesperson.
Home knowledge broker. How about that?
A what?
Home knowledge broker.
Thank you.
My
A
new
home
elevator
knowledge
speech.
broker.
Come to the rescue.
Thank you. Go. Michael Turner. He's the owner. He is an incredible builder and the former president of the Dallas Builders Association. So he must know something. And
I drew the short straw. Is how I got that
you
job.
drew the short straw. But welcome to the show, guys. It's good to see you. Great to have you. And we're going to talk about. We've got this huge amount of ground we can cover because there's so much going on, and I know it's starting to sound repetitious, but I think these discussions are important for our audience, and a lot of our audience is a business audience. And one of the things that I remember from '08 and really kind of before that with my vast years in this business is that there's people that are in the real estate and the building industry that we hit these rough patches and they've never experienced them. You know, it's like a person, a man or woman that has started maybe as a builder maybe 6 years ago. They hit it when it was hot. They're making money. They're having fun. It's no big challenge getting people to call you. What's the big deal? Business is easy. I'm going to Cancun for 2 weeks. I don't care anymore. What do you tell them to prepare them for what is going on now, which is a big disruption, whether the people want to say it in the news or not? It is.
What goes up will come down. This too shall pass.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's
So
true.
I mean, you got to make hay while the sun's shining and it's good times, and make sure you're putting money away because you will have down times. You'll have struggles, and you got to be able to ride the waves in this business because it seems like it's either really good or it's really bad. There's very little in between. So you gotta be prepared. And
So maybe not put that big wrap on your truck, spend that $3,000 on that, maybe put that $3,000 in your retirement account or your rainy day fund.
yeah, definitely a rainy day fund is a good
Yeah.
thing to have, and maybe hold off on buying the new F-350.
Yeah.
Right now would
Get
probably
an
be a good-
F-250.
Yes, F-250.
Downside.
So Bess, realtors are having problems too. I mean, it's a complex set of problems though. It's a supply problem. Well, it's a supply.
It's a challenge.
Okay.
It's a challenge.
Okay.
I'm coaching my buyers and my sellers through this fundamental fact right now, and that is, yes, you've got the headlines, and news media is designed to sell news.
Right.
If it was an impossible task right now, be it buying a home or selling a home, our days on market would be zero. And they're not zero right now. Right now they're averaging, an uncomfortable less than a month supply, but they're not zero. And so that means that there's opportunities out there if you follow a process, if you do your due diligence, if you've saved a lot of pennies in your rainy day fund. You can make it happen. It's challenging.
Is this a good time to get into the business, or? I'm not saying to discourage people from getting into it, but if you're thinking, well, that maybe I want to get into a different part of the business than being a seller, maybe, or being an agent. Maybe I want to do something else. Maybe I want to answer the phones. Maybe I want to just work in the office. Maybe I want to file, whatever.
Fair enough. If you're someone that is a self-starter and that enjoys figuring out problems, challenges, Sure.
Jump
If you
on it,
are
jump on
someone, if you're, what I'm encountering, I'll say this with a lot of the transactions I've got going on right now, my biggest challenge, besides diffusing consumers' preconceived assumptions of how this works, and that probably also applies in the building business as well as the resale business, outside of that challenge, is coaching the others agent on the other side along that might have just received their license because they lost their job from COVID and they could take real estate classes online. And what else should they do with their stimulus money anyway than just to do a real estate license because they've always thought it would be great.
Go
And
to the beach. You mean instead of going to the beach?
right, and and a
right.
real estate transaction has speed bumps in it anyway, and then to add an extra challenge of someone that is inexperienced with being a professional problem solver, which is probably the biggest part of my job. I mean, sometimes my problem might be explaining my client's expectations and how that marries up with Michael's challenge of meeting regulations and timing and supply chain challenges.
Finding building materials right now is the challenge.
Such a great segue into what I was going to bring up next. And we have a chart we're going to put up that shows the regulatory costs are added to a home right now if you're building a home. And one of the reasons I called Bess, she put this up on LinkedIn the other day, and I thought it was just stunning to see this number that 24% of the cost of a new home is regulatory stuff, for lack of a better word I can say here. Michael, talk to us about how this works for a builder.
It just increases the overall cost of the house. And, right now we're able to absorb that in the market because demand is strong, interest rates are low. And so you can kind of roll that in there and it only factors in, X amount of dollars per month. But, you'll start to really see some pushback as interest rates will start to creep up over the next year. I think everything we hear right now, we should be good for the near future. But as we know, that will change. The demand on the housing market right now is, like nothing we've ever seen. I've been in the industry 37 years and have never seen it this crazy. And it just at some point in time it will it'll rear its ugly head, and all those regulatory costs will when you factor in what rates are, and just you keep tacking that stuff on to the back end of the price, and eventually there's pushback, or you just start eliminating people that can't afford it
They
anymore.
can't quite get to that payment that they're going to have, or whatever it is. They can't borrow that money, and that's my big fear going forward for the near future, is that we're out pricing our buyers, and it's not you don't have control over that.
No, I mean, when you see lumber cost, everybody's aware of that now. You see that's front page headlines now. That the cost of lumber, some commodities have gone up fivefold, in the past year. But overall framing package is anywhere from 50 to 75% higher than it was.
Unbelievable.
A year ago, and you take some larger luxury type homes. You take a lumber package that was $75,000, now it's $125,000 to $150,000 in some instances, and people are gonna start tapping the brakes and going, maybe I'll wait till this.
Well, I've talked to some
happens.
people that are already hearing that,
Yeah.
and it just makes everybody a little jittery.
Sure.
And so the problem is that you have to have this person's income match the higher cost that normally they would have matched, but now all of a sudden they don't. All of a sudden there's that additional chunk of money, big chunk of money.
Yeah,
they didn't qualify for. Or whatever.
Sure. Oh, how many people do you know that their salary increases 25 or 30% every year?
In a year, exactly.
And that's what we're dealing with in building cost increases.
I mean, essentially, we price things so that people can afford to buy them, right? So we've all watched this housing. The three of us have a few years involved in this. And so we've watched it go from an average cost of, 200,000, actually, I remember way under that, to what is it now? Almost 400,000, almost
Yeah.
twice that.
Yep.
And that's huge. And so your client has to be able to, your customer has to be able to pay for that.
Yeah.
Do you see an end in sight for the, people are asking me if the price of material is going to go back down, if this stuff's going to settle down. I don't know of course, I don't think anybody know the answer.
Right.
But the way everything else is going, I don't know if we're not just setting a new baseline that's higher.
Yeah, I definitely think
And
we are.
everything's got to follow
Yeah.
that, including salaries.
Well, being in the business, we follow, what a sheet of OSB, cost, and you
Right.
go into Lowe's or Home Depot, and you and I remember it when it was, $5, $6, $7 a sheet, and to see it now at $48 to $52 a sheet, I mean, it's I don't think it can sustain that. What's the new floor? Is the new floor? Does it go down to $25 a sheet at some point?
But
in
still,
time?
but still, so, I mean, that doesn't mean you don't, it just means you have to change the way you do things.
Yeah.
But, you have to substitute something else with that, I guess.
I think it's the perfect time in the market for innovation, and let's find some new products and materials that we can use to
Yeah.
not be held hostage.
Well,
by
that's a
lumber
great
prices.
point, though. That's a
Yeah.
great point, and that's generally, I guess, what these things do. So, supply. Talk to us about supply, because what we're hearing is there's lines of people going down the street at the D.R. Horton development, not pounding on the door, begging them to come in and let them buy a house. I'll take the first one you've got. Oh, ma'am, that'll be 2 months. Stay in line. Is that true?
That's true. Part of it too. There's certain areas that D.R. Horton's building in, from what I understand, that their salespeople have been told to only sign 3 contracts a month.
Wow.
Period.
Wow.
And the reason why is going back to the supply deal is that builders are not 501c3s. They're actually business people.
Really?
And they do
had
this.
those years, though.
Yeah. And they do this to
Maybe I
earn.
need to put that on my letterhead. This is not a 501.
And so they're, well, in all fairness, they're trying. I mean, what's the whole goal? The whole goal is to buy groceries, really. I mean, maybe bonus buy Michael's new boat, but also
Did
primarily.
you get a new boat again? You got another one?
Primarily to buy groceries, right? And so what was happening was they were, your typical build for new builders is eight months and maybe 9 months now, thanks to window deliveries and other things, right? But by the time they were actually handing keys over to people, they were finding they really were breaking even if they were lucky, because of all the ongoing changes. Hey, by the way, that quote on that lumber package is now this instead of this. Yeah. And so now they've limited it to about 3 to 4 contracts a month, just to hedge their bets on the cost.
Well,
So
and
it's
of
just
course,
interesting.
those guys, they're selling at last year's prices because they were buying it by the train load, train car load. Michael's not.
No.
That is
And
correct.
so what this really starts to affect is the small builder, the small volume builder. They don't have the advantage of volume. So what are your thoughts along those lines?
Some of the networking groups I'm involved in, a lot of us guys that have always been fixed cost builders, are starting to look at a model of doing, cost plus, so that we can help kind of hedge some of those, those costs. Depends on the contractor using. Some of them have, escalator clauses in there. But that's never a good way to start off a relationship. with a
relationship,
homeowner
yeah.
going, hey,
It's
we
the
thought this
price
was going to be this, but
accept.
this is
Yeah,
really
right.
what it is. Yeah. So, back to the volume builders, a lot of those guys now, they don't really want to pre-sell. They just want to sell specs, because they can factor in, whatever the cost of the materials are, when they go to put it on the market. But for small guys, like myself that do, 6 to 10 homes a year, it's a lot of it is really educating the buyer on, on what's going on in the world, just being very upfront and honest with them that it's a super volatile market. We're getting price increases, from some supplier or manufacturer on a daily basis at this point. And, letting them know that, it's still a good market to build in, right? I mean, interest rates are never going to be as low as they are right now. so we can absorb that. None of us have a crystal ball and know what next year is going to bring. So you just try to educate them the best you can.
Bess, your relocation business is crazy, and I only say this because when I drive down the highway, all I see are out-of-state license plates.
Yes.
I feel like I'm in Florida, you
Yes.
know, and it's Christmas.
Right?
What's the news? Give us kind of the news on relocations to Dallas, since that's what you do.
Among other things, yes. It's very similar conversation to what Michael's having, and that is Texas is a whole nother country, and the way we build, the way our houses settle, the way our houses get to their normal of squareness.
They're normal out of square.
What are you insinuating here?
Might be a little different than what they're used to. I mean, kind of opened in a question you gave me. So, I mean, I go one way and say part of my process is to walk them through all those Texas normals. I mean, the other part of the question might be interpreted as how do we handle all that volume when we do have a limited inventory, and just being smart about it is really, defusing the panic, like kind of similar to what Michael was talking about, being transparent. Let's not panic. Let's figure out together how to get you settled with your home, with your keys. And so I've got several reloads that right now are Airbnb hopping. It's a little system I've come up with, and that is that they lease an Airbnb anywhere from 2 weeks to to 3 to 4 months. And we're very transparent with the Airbnb operator that, hey, we are looking for a home. The cool thing is, especially for reloads, it is a great way. So here's a hack if you're thinking about moving into Texas or anywhere actually, is to do a long-term lease in a neighborhood you're interested in, which Money Magazine seems to seem like they know what the best neighborhoods are in Texas. And it's funny, going back to professionals and agents, I'm having clients come in and they pick this neighborhood because Money Magazine said it was great, and then they live in it for 3 weeks in their Airbnb, and they're like, Bess, this isn't so great. Okay, so now we're ready to listen to you. Where should we go? And so then we go
So
to
now we'll talk to the local people.
You got
right.
it. And now we get to Airbnb is a great way to test drive a neighborhood without investing any more than your suitcase
That's
and your
interesting.
time. And the cool thing about Airbnb, everything's already set up. Like plates are in place, electricity's already connected, water, power, internet, all that. And especially since nowadays it's a great leverage, since the entire world has figured out how to work from home
Right.
and make a living.
Yeah.
Again, it doesn't matter where you are. And so I also have people that are thinking about accepting a new job in Texas, and they're coming in and they're staying for a few weeks working from home.
Testing the waters.
Testing
Wow. Cool.
before they, it's really an interesting process.
We have another chart I want to put up that is, I thought, really interesting, kind of tells the story on the cost of housing. Michael, can you see that chart? It's showing us $50,000 worth of lumber and what it built in 2020, which was 10 and a half single family units, and what it's building now, which is 2.5, maybe a half, maybe 2.25 family units. And that I saw that and I thought that is just totally fascinating and really kind of says it in a nutshell where we're at on costs. And I think at the end of the day, as always in our system, at the end of the day, cost is the bottom line. The driver of the engine is what this stuff costs, and can people afford it? And I know they're coming out of places where they go, well, look what I just came out of. And I hear it all the time. I talk to people all the time. And they're just like, wow, well, you should have seen the price of this house in San Francisco. And I go, okay, cool.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, in the long term, so you don't buy a house for 2 weeks, right? You buy a house for 20 years. I don't know what the average is. What's the average now?
It just moved up to 12 years.
12
It was
years.
at 7 for a long time, but the NAR just released it was like 12 years.
So they're staying longer. Yeah. Well, they should be because they're paying a whole lot more.
I would love to, on a side note, I'd love to see a statistic of how many more generations live in housing now. I
Together.
mean, multi-generation is becoming a norm, but I wonder how many generations now. So I was talking to a relocation from California last week, and they said they're still getting used to their new normal because they grew up in a house with 4 generations.
Wow.
And,
Wow.
And they
Got to really love your family, don't you?
right.
Yeah.
And now
Or really hate them.
right.
It's like, you're staying.
It's just blowing their mind that single generation or possibly double generational living in Texas is our normal, because they said everywhere and where they were in California, they were outside of LA, everywhere was at least 3, if not 4 generations in
And is
one
that
house.
to share the cost? The
Right, they
living
just can't afford to
expenses, or-
move.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, particularly on the
Yeah.
West Coast.
Yeah.
And I guess the East Coast is experiencing the same thing. Yeah, so great discussion, guys. It's really,
Thank you.
I love having you guys here. You're so Hey, don't forget to follow us on all your social media. Like us on Facebook, subscribe and share on YouTube, and check us out on all your social media platforms. Don't forget to watch Remodel Revolution on your smart TV, on Texas Weather Tracker TV, on Roku, Android, Apple, and Amazon TV, Sundays at 1 and 3 p.m. Central Standard Time.